Good evening, everybody. Thank you. I'm an educator, so that's what I'm looking for. I appreciate it. I want to welcome you to Morgan Elementary, a wonderful school. We're excited to have you here this evening. We hope you enjoy yourselves. We encourage you to be active participants. There's an opportunity to ask questions. Right outside, there's some paper pen to put the questions out. And please also enjoy the refreshments. And without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Miss Amanda Fernandez.
Buenas noches y bienvenidos a todos, ¿qué tal? Ustedes están aquí para participar en un diálogo con el comisario del Departamento de Educación Primaria y Secundaria, Jeff Friday. Estamos aquí porque para promover el éxito de los estudiantes latinos es crítico que las políticas y prácticas públicas sean informadas por las voces y el liderazgo de la comunidad latina. Estamos aquí para darte el bienvenido a las familias, los maestros y los líderes educativos. So all I said was that we're here tonight for a community dialogue with our new Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education, Jeff Friday. And we're here because it's imperative that if we want to see the success of not only Latino students, but of all students, we must have the voices of our community, our Latino community, and the leaders of our community. And I also said, bienvenidos, which is welcome. And I didn't introduce myself, so let me do that for a second, because you're wondering who this woman is with the yellow sweater. Me llamo Amanda Fernandez. I'm the CEO and founder of Latinos for Education. And we're a fairly new organization in the state of Massachusetts. We've been around for just a few years. But our work is focused on developing, placing, and connecting what we think is essential Latino leadership in the education sector. Given the demographic of not only our country, but our state and cities like Holyoke that is highly representative of the Latino community, we think it's important and essential that our teachers and our leaders reflect the communities that we're in and that we educate. So that's a little bit about our work. I'm also a proud member of the State Board of Education, which is how I got to know Commissioner Riley. And when he was appointed to his role recently, I found out that he would be doing a listening tour across the state to hear from our communities. So I asked him to prioritize, in particular, hearing from the Latino community and hearing from communities like Holyoke, where there is a tremendous amount of work being done to ensure that our children are getting access to the best possible education. So he agreed to do that. So our organization is supporting 3 different town halls across the state. We did one on October 1st on Monday in Boston. Tonight, of course, here in Holyoke, and then next week we'll do one more in Somerville. Although I told the commissioner that we're starting to get requests for other cities. So this tour might be extended, Commissioner. But with that, I'm going to stop there and let's get this show on the road. I'm going to introduce Superintendent Wright, who you all know, so I will not make a long introduction.
I do want to point out that if there's anybody that needs interpretation, we have interpreters over here. So cualquier persona que necesita interpretación, tenemos a Luz y Julián, que están ahí, si necesitan interpretación. So good evening and welcome to the Holyoke Public Schools and to Morgan School. I want to thank Steve Mogel, who's the brand new principal here, for being so gracious. I think he almost fell over when I told him the commissioner was going to come within his first month of principalship. But thankful to his staff and the community of South Holyoke for hosting this event. We are proud to welcome Latinos for Education and Commissioner Riley to be part of this important town hall about the state of Latino education in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As a Cuban American and I'm a newly baptized Puerto Rican after being in Holyoke, I'm proud to lead the school district that serves almost 5,300 students, 80% of whom identify as Latino. Almost 45% of our students are first language, not English. 22% of our students are identified as English language learners. We are the poorest district in the Commonwealth. And we have the highest percentage of homeless students in the state, 10%. In the last year, we have welcomed over 220 students since Hurricane Maria, of whom 150 remain with us today. This has added to the richness of our city and schools, who are committed to celebrating the culture, experience, and traditions of our predominantly Puerto Rican student body. As part of this commitment, we have worked hard to better serve our Latino students, and we have seen important, albeit incomplete progress. So specifically, over the last 5 years, our four-year graduation rate for Latinos has increased by almost 20%, from 47.5% to 66%. During that same span, our annual dropout rate has been almost cut in half for Latinos, from 11.2% to 6.7%. Our English language arts scores in high school increased by 9% over the last year, topping 80% for the first time. At Morgan School, where we sit today, one of the schools that has historically struggled the most, our third grade performance approaches or is close to the state average in English language arts, which showcases the power of investing in strong teaching, especially in the early grades. We're working to increase the diversity of our teaching staff. In the last 3 years, we have developed multiple preparation pipelines that have yielded a 5% increase in the number of educators of color working with our students. We now have a district-wide translation and interpretation set of expectations and requirements that ensures that all our parents have access to important information about their child's education in their native language. Finally, I'm very proud to share that this fall, we have 222 high schoolers taking college courses. The vast majority of those who are Latino students at Holyoke Community College, Westfield, and at UMass. And I think I see the president of HCC is somewhere here. Welcome, Dr. Morales. Let me be absolutely clear. This is far from good enough. And there is tremendous work ahead to close the opportunity gap for our Latino students in Holyoke. We cannot be okay with 33% of our Latino students not graduating from high school, or that even with improved numbers, approximately 80 Latino students drop out from our schools every single year. We need to be outraged, and I mean outraged, about achievement levels for Latinos in math and English language arts that are substantially below state averages and are among the lowest in the entire state for Latino students. We cannot be satisfied with our current numbers of 15 to 20% teachers of color in our buildings. Our staffing needs to better reflect the population we serve. Our suspension rates for particularly Latino males are among the highest in the state. While they've declined over the last few years, they are still among the highest in Massachusetts. Finally, our schools and our educators need to be more equipped than they currently are to support the high numbers of our students and their families who have experienced trauma and other adverse childhood experiences, or who struggle with mental health challenges, all factors that clearly have an impact on school performance. So what is our plan of action? While we're always in need of more resources and appreciate additional funding, I'll put a plug in for that, there are key actions that we are taking now and need to take now as a school district. Our district equity work is focused on a relentless pursuit of ensuring that our students have access to cognitively demanding work that is on or above grade level. Too often we talk about our students as too poor, too far behind, too traumatized, a pobrecito phenomenon that I hear too often. And we pitch instruction and student learning experience below what our students are capable of accomplishing. Yes, more support is needed, but not at the expense of receiving an education that makes students think, respond to text, write with purpose, and solve complex mathematical problems. We need to take advantage, and we will take advantage of the newly passed Look Bill to examine the bilingual pathways that balances the urgency of learning a second language while building on the strengths a student brings in their native language and their culture. We are also relaunching a parent bilingual advisory group to better inform families about services their child receives and to serve as a forum for families to ask questions, voice concerns, and share input about the opportunities our English learners receive in our schools. And we need to build on the early success of our high school redesign efforts, which has resulted in improved outcomes for students through theme-based learning academies with an intentional connection to early college and workforce. The experience is more motivating and above all relevant to the learner. We need to create more of these dynamic and enriching learning opportunities for our middle and elementary school students through core classes, specialty offerings, and during out-of-school time. We have to have stronger hooks for students to come together centered around high-interest classes and clubs such as robotics, debate, science, sports, music, art, to name a few. It's the well-rounded education that the Commissioner talks so much about that we are lacking in our middle and elementary schools here in Holyoke. And I want to conclude by thanking you all for being here this evening, to be part of this important dialogue, and above all, to serve as willing partners with us to realize our mission of designing a school system with multiple pathways where all students graduate prepared to excel in college, career, and community leadership. Thank you all for being here tonight. I have the privilege of introducing our commissioner. And I'm going to read a little bit about your bios. You don't want, all right, so I'm just going to jump to it. I've known the commissioner for a long time. We were both principals in the Boston Public Schools together, and I always knew about this force in Charlestown. I was on the other side of the city, who was getting all this accolade. I didn't understand who this guy was, bald head, from the time he was 18 years old. So as long as I've known him, he's been balder than me, so it made me feel good about myself. Having had the opportunity to work with Jeff in the past, he's a fierce advocate for the most underserved students, and he has a strong belief in a well-rounded educational experience for all, and he has a track record, which very few do in this state, of dramatically improving schools and districts that have been historically underserved and have historically underperformed. So with that, I present you and I welcome Commissioner Riley.
Mr. Clean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ellie Savalas, Bald Bull. I was a middle school principal, I've heard them all. I cannot be intimidated. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I got to speak a little bit earlier, and I think the point I try to bring home is this. Although I'm the Commissioner of Education, I've spent my life, more than 25 years, working primarily in urban areas in Lawrence and the Boston Public Schools where my kids go. At the end of the day, what we're trying to get is fairness. We're trying to get all of our kids to maximize their ability and talent. And right now in Massachusetts, we are #1 in the country on various metrics and test scores and things like that. But if you look closer at the data, we're only #1 for some. We're not #1 for all. We see that kids with second language learners, kids who are living in poverty, kids with special needs are not achieving at the same levels as kids in the suburbs, for instance. And our job is to figure out how all of our children get what they need. Some of that is about funding. There is a funding problem in this state. This foundation budget, which was almost fixed last spring, I believe is going to be fixed this coming year. And it's a budget that has disproportionately affected gateway cities. Holyoke, Brockton, where I was superintendent for the last 7 years in Lawrence, have been shorted millions of dollars. Money that, believe me, I could have used for my kids in Lawrence. And so that's part of what we have to do. But more than that, I think we've done 25 years of education reform. And we spent a lot of time on systems and structures, on accountability and MCAS. And what I think we need to do is get back to really what matters most, which is celebrating and supporting our teachers. They are the most important people that we have, assets that we have, that can help our children. And we've kind of shied away from that. And we've got to get back to focusing on that. I talked earlier about my own daughter who has an IEP and never struggled in school but has loved school because she had teachers that cared so much about her and made her love school. And the child she's become from when she was a little boo-boo when she was 4 years old to who she is today is only on account of the great teachers she's had. And yet, we don't take the time to celebrate those people. Right? We have Jamil Siddiqui, our Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. 24-year veteran math teacher, has 20 of his former students are now teachers in Massachusetts. 15 are now math teachers like him in Massachusetts. And he says to me, the thing that I worry about the most is I don't have time to talk to other teachers. How do we not give our teachers the time and space to talk to each other, to share best practices? How do we not find the time to download everything this man does? And when I went to this assembly, when he was given the award, children were almost crying. They were so excited for him. He had been that much of a difference maker in their lives. Kids that hated math suddenly said, not only did I understand it, but I learned to love math. Right? We need to start getting back into the business of deep instruction and pedagogy and making sure that our teachers have what they need. And as a community, we need to come back together and figure out what do we want for our kids for the next 25 years? Where are we going? I think we've got to start with teachers, but we have to get input from everybody. Students, parents, teachers, foundations, unions, charters, everyone that has a stake in schools needs to be able to come to the table and plan for where we're going. And so my job, I'm new, is to try to learn everything that's happening in the state. So I'm kind of crisscrossing the state, trying to talk to as many people as I can to say, how can we do better by our children? Although I'm the Commissioner of Education, first and foremost, I'm a parent of 2 kids who go to the Boston Public Schools. And I want them to have just as good as experience as the kids who live in the wealthy suburbs. And so how can we do that? Thank you for having me, and I think we're going to take questions now. Okay.
So we would like to invite community members to certainly ask whatever questions you have of the commissioner. We also have some written questions, and Stephen here will be also alternating between reading questions, the commissioner responding, and then community members being invited to ask your questions. So feel free. If you want to start first with the written question, Stephen.
First question I will start off with is one from Bay Path University, Girls Inc. of Holyoke. They are interested in understanding a little bit more specifically, what are you currently doing to empower our Latinx students across the state of Massachusetts?
So my primary experience was both at Boston and Lawrence, where I served primarily Latino students. And what we started looking at is the pipeline after our kids left us to bring kids back into education. And so we went and recruited our Lawrence High School graduates who had just recently graduated college and said, hey, come back and help us at Lawrence. We actually tripled the number of Latino teachers in the district in a 5-year period. And we did it with things like incentives. I talked earlier about something called a NACA program. We were able to give some of our new teachers a mortgage at like a 2% interest rate, with no points and no closing costs, so they could move back in the city and be part of the change. When we were in Lawrence, people were saying a lot of bad things about us in the beginning. And people said, you're not going to talk about us like that. And so we have a huge number of people in Lawrence that jumped in to help the schools. And we kind of leveraged that opportunity and tried to bring our kids back into the fold to help the next generation.
Excellent, thank you very much. Does anyone have a question? We'll take hands.
I think I can speak loud enough. How you doing? Thank you for coming out to Holyoke. My name is Gladys Martinez. I'm actually a grandparent. I want to say nine grandchildren, 4 children of my own. Graduated from this school system. So proud to share that. The reason I say that is because one of my roles
I think, look, the most important thing to remember is that children are our most precious resource, right? And we send our children, I send my children to Boston every day, and sometimes the buses run, sometimes they don't. We want things to be better. Holyoke was placed in receivership because there was a lot of turnover. There was some issues that were happening, and the idea is to try to stabilize things, show some improvements, and then gradually return it back to the system. I don't know what the time frame would be for Holyoke. I can speak to you about what happened in Lawrence, where I was there for just a little under 7 years, and then we started the transition to what they call a receivership board now, which has local folks who are helping make the decision along with some state-appointed people. So it's kind of a co-model, and the hope is in the next few years that it'll go back to completely local control. That would be probably a 10 to 12 year window. I don't know. But I think, I can't say Lawrence is the same as Holyoke. I don't know enough to say. What I can say is that we've seen some positive things in Holyoke already, particularly around the graduation rate, especially with our Latino students, the dropout rate going down. We've seen some of the buildings that need to be replaced have got in the pipeline for MSBA, so we're starting to see some traction. But what the actual time frame is, I can't say. We've got to see some more academic results. We want to make sure that our kids have the best possible academic outcomes before we start talking about what the transition is going to look like. So I know that's probably not the exact answer you want, but I want to be very truthful with you that I've started my new job. I'm going to be looking at everything. I'm going to come to hear from the community and to hear these things. And I just want to see continued progress before we even start talking about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I have a question from Jack Burke. Now, you've told us some of your plans for some of your experiences with recruiting and keeping teachers in Lawrence. But Jack is interested in understanding a little bit more about your efforts to bring about greater diversity amongst our teaching force.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of research out there now that says a child of color who sees one teacher that looks like them, just one, in the course of their K-12 career, has significantly better life outcomes. Because they just need to see one teacher that looks like them. And yet, right now in Massachusetts, 40% of our children are children of color, 8% of our teaching forces are teachers of color. That's just not acceptable. We have to do a better job of bringing in folks that reflect our student population. And I would say this, we have to recruit. We have to make teaching be exciting. We have to call on people as if this is a mission to come back and help the community. That's what we did in Lawrence. Because in this economy, which I guess is going pretty good, you know, I literally had to talk a biology major out of accepting a $100,000 job out of UMass Lowell to come teach for $45,000 in Lawrence, right? And that's hard, right? That's not an easy sell. But, you know, she cared so much about her community, she wanted to give back. And so we, as the adults, have to go out and make sure that people see teaching as an honorable profession, as a noble profession, and as a crucial profession for our kids.
So I saw a hand earlier.
Should we go to the back? I always used to sit in the back.
We want to use the microphone so that it's on the camera.
Well, my name is Mark Hugo, and I am very well known in Massachusetts. Matter of fact, I wanted to say that in secondary education in Illinois, I graduated in 1990. Most of my friends also did because they had high grades and stuff. Only one person dropped out because of that person and her family was moving back to Alabama at the time. She was a friend of mine. And right now I am offering some classes in English in Northampton, Massachusetts, currently. And I'm tutoring people. And I wish to keep on doing this even right here when classes are going to be in session. if this is okay with you, for English learners, even for people who speak really good Spanish, like the people right next to me. As a matter of fact, my parents were also teachers. My dad taught Spanish linguistics in Cornell University. My mom, English. So thank you very much for your time and energy.
Thank you. Thank you for helping our kids.
We have another question over here.
Hi, my name is Ana Jaramillo, and I work in different community projects here in Holyoke, and I work for the Holyoke Health Center. I just have a question. I hear many times the word like changes, and we need to be fair in education. We need to bring equity to education here in Holyoke. I am a Latina, mom of a successful Latina who 20 years ago actually was part of Holyoke Public School. It was the beginning for her, and they did a tremendous job. But when I hear the equity, I think something that is not being said is the amount of need, the different needs these districts have different than education. We need, for the schools, we need funding, we need services. Our community is maybe not much different, but it's very different. They need support, they need behavioral health support. We have a lot of kids who are living in unstable situation. Housing is an issue. When we talk about homelessness in Holyoke, we are talking about families. The numbers are very high, 10% of the kids. We have food insecurity very high. We need language is important, but more than the language, our kids are already bilingual in some form and way. We have the parents who a lot of the times are being like with the label, with the stigma, they don't care. They do care. They care in different ways. They have cultural differences, but high expectations. And we need teachers who actually understand the difference. Like being no present doesn't mean the parents don't care. If they are not here, it could be because it's not something they understand the need for them to be here. It's because for so long, Latino community have a voice but no channels that we can voice in a way that we feel or comfortable or heard. And I think that is what I'm asking. It's like Holyoke is trying so hard. The schools are trying. With the receivership, we see more welcoming in schools, but we need to create a school system that is fun, cultural sensitive, and has the right budget for the kids we serve. We need to look into behavioral health needs. Is so high. These kids and the school don't have either the services they need, the money they need to serve the kids. We need more support from the state, and we need to show, like, when we gain a point, how much work and effort is from the entire community to move the bar ourselves with so many challenges and this much budget. This is a community that has a lot of community support for the needs we have. And as a community, I think the schools have a lot of support. As a system, they are pretty much in their own. Because when you go to a guidance counselor, their challenges are huge, huge, with no money either the resources. And I think you can help us with that.
We're going to help you. This foundation budget problem needs to be fixed. It really does, because it's impacting the Holyokes and impacting my district in Lawrence, where we're being shorted millions of dollars, things that I could have used to help my kids, right? And kids here in Holyoke need those services too. What I would say is a couple things. There is something called a supplemental budget that is on Beacon Hill right now with our elected officials. In that supplemental budget, the governor has put $45 million for more counselors and clinicians in the schools. We need to get that supplemental budget passed. Right? So if you have people that you've elected to office, please avail yourselves of the democratic process and let them know if you think this is a good idea. I'm not supposed to be telling you it's a good idea, but I think it would be helpful to Joel.
I'll tell you it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. The record show I did not say it was a good idea. This year I'm here to say it. And so that's the supplemental budget. But there's also this foundation budget review, which we really have to get fixed. They almost got it done last spring, but then they kind of couldn't come to final agreement on it. I believe it will be fixed this year, but obviously your voices are really important. And I want to take you with me and hire you to, make these statements because our kids need to have better. We live in this technological age where kids have phones that are more connected, but I've never seen a more disconnected group of children. Lonely, isolated, dealing with trauma, some of them dealing with poverty, some of them, like my daughter, dealing with special needs. Like, we've got to make sure we have the services we need for our kids because they're not going to care about learning slope of a line in algebra if they're dealing with an issue with their home that happened the night before, or they're worried about where the next meal is going to come from, right? Or they're worried about being embarrassed because they have special needs in school, right? And so we've got to make sure that we take care of those needs first before we can actually even get to teaching. And so I believe in that really adjustment council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll follow up with a question from the Massachusetts Parents United. Only 1 in 3 Latino students are reading at grade level in Massachusetts by the end of 3rd grade. What is the state's plan to improve this?
So I think we have a fundamental reading problem overall, and in particular, we've seen Latino students are not acquiring proficiency at the same level. Some of that has to do with the fact that it takes a little bit more time to learn a second language for kids that do. But don't be fooled by that. And sometimes people use that as an excuse, right? The truth is we need to do better by our kids. What we're working on in the state, and Board Member Moriarty is here, is trying to figure out how we can do some interventions as early as kindergarten and pre-K to make sure that we start to move the needle on 3rd grade reading. Because the language gaps, the word gaps, these things happen early on. And so kids that get exposed to a more print-rich environment are more likely to read by 3rd grade. And so we know some of the strategies we have to do, but we have to actually have the willpower to do it. And my hope is that by really starting to tackle things and have interventions in the earlier grades, particularly with second language learners, Latino kids, kids with special needs, we'll be able to, kids with dyslexia, for instance, that's an important group. Like, we wait sometimes before we diagnose a problem and say there's a problem. We know there's a problem. So we just have to start earlier on things like that. It's a great question.
Thank you.
There's a question back here.
Go to the back. And we'll.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Jackie, yo voy a hablar en español. Señora María.
I will translate.
Le doy la bienvenida a todos ustedes por estar aquí.
Necesitamos un sistema. Cuando yo te haga así, tú tienes que parar para
Pues vete, vete aquí, vete aquí. Le doy la bienvenida por estar aquí esta noche con nosotros y a todos los que están aquí presentes. Pero lamentablemente tengo que decir algo. Yo llevo 20 años, más de 20 años, trabajando voluntariamente como padre en la escuela pública de Córdoba. Siempre hemos tenido lo mismo y lo mismo y lo mismo. Lamentablemente.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. So she wants to welcome you to Holyoke. She has been working for 20 years as a volunteer parent advocate here in the city of Holyoke. And she unfortunately wants to just say that this is nothing new to her, that this conversation is nothing new to her.
En verdad, se hacen reuniones, pero con respeto a todos los que están aquí presentes, muchos son de administración, tienen su posición. Yo no veo a muchos padres aquí, y sí de la comunidad.
To all due respect to everyone in this room and at this moment, but doesn't want to be offensive, but the reality is that there is a lot of agency reps here and people with positions and titles and alphabets behind their last name, and very little people from the community are present.
Muchas veces dicen, casi siempre se oye, echándole la culpa a los padres, a los estudiantes porque no están presentes. Pero le guste o no, que nos ha fallado a nosotros ha sido el sistema.
Oh, sorry. When she said people from the community, she actually meant specifically parents. And she said that, unfortunately, well, people tend to have this ability to blame parents and students for the lack of whatever. But the reality is that, in her opinion, the system has failed us.
Muchos de nuestros niños han sido pasados especialmente y no tienen absolutamente nada, simplemente por el lenguaje. Porque muchos maestros no han querido trabajar con ellos. Que muchos de nuestros niños fueron pasados especialmente.
Oh, so she believes that one of the issues that has happened is that a lot of the students who are quote unquote labeled as special needs are really students who our teachers didn't want to work with.
También a nuestros niños latinos que necesitan grande ayuda sobre el programa bilingüe. Muchos de nuestros maestros bilingües aquí fueron humillados hasta tal punto que renunciaron y se fueron. Aquí necesitamos más personal hispano si de verdad queremos que este sistema siga hacia adelante.
So she said that there was a point where there were professionals in the system that spoke Spanish and were Latino, and I'm just gonna, this is my adding to this, are culturally competent, let's not forget that one, who in fact were humiliated and pushed out of the system and left, resigned.
Este problema no viene de ahora, esto hace años que viene este problema. Lamentablemente, ahora que es más real, pues van a necesitar mucho trabajo para hacerlo. Pero ahora mismo, ¿cómo llegaron a nuestros padres la información de esta reunión? Porque bastantes veces se ha hablado. Muchos padres no tienen internet, no tienen Facebook, no ven el canal de las escuelas, porque ya no quieren pasar el trabajo de hacer los flyers y ponerlos en los bultos de nuestros hijos o de nuestros nietos, de nuestra familia, para nosotros cogerlo en la escuela. Y eso es algo que nosotros venimos peleando hace tiempo. Eso es uno de los más que ha fallado aquí. Porque no quieren comunicarse y pasar el trabajo para nuestros padres. Yo quisiera saber cómo lograron comunicarse de esta reunión.
No? Oh, no? Okay. Anybody else want to help with translation? So she said that one of the sort of a critique that I'm summarizing, by the way, this is not verbatim. One of the critiques that she has is like, how were parents informed of this meeting? She said, not all parents have Facebook, not all parents have internet, not all parents have access to the community channel, the school channel. And so, a flyer in the book bag of students may have been something that could have helped to draw parents here. But How come that didn't happen, and what was the marketing tool to get people to come out here? The outreach.
Yo por una parte me siento orgullosa, pues mis hijas se graduaron de la escuela superior, de Hollywood Public School. Han estado en colegio. Pero a través de estos años, yo sí vi como nuestros padres han llorado y han sufrido por las injusticias que han recibido, por la falta de que sus hijos tengan una educación de calidad. Porque tienen que aprender que no solamente lo que tienen no necesitan mucha ayuda. Los que necesitan ayuda son los que no entienden bien el lenguaje, los que tienen diferentes notas de C, D, F. Pero ese siempre nos lo están dejando para atrás. De ahora que si de verdad quieren que trabaje el sistema, pues hagan el trabajo que deben hacer. Y que ayuden a los que en verdad necesitan ayuda. Aquí se necesita más personal bilingüe. Porque aquí la mayoría de nuestros hijos y nietos, familias, son latinos.
Let's see, how did I get in this role? I speak Spanglish. Let's see, so she said if the system really wants to work with our parents, that there has to be more effort, more intentionality, and that, you know, again, this isn't like a new problem, that this has been going on for decades, that she's super proud that she was able to manage to get her daughters to graduate, and have gone on to college, but that, you know, that students who are A and B, that's easy, that's sort of the cream of the crop, but students who are at risk, those who get C's, D's, and F's, those are the students that really need to be supported. Yes? All right.
Muchas gracias.
So let me say this. I can't disagree with anything she says.
Good answer.
Let's call it what it is, right? Let me say this to you also. I don't actually schedule or do the marketing to bring folks when I come to different places, but I'm happy to come back at a parent report card night or whatever to talk to more parents, right? In Lawrence, people know, like, we had a PTO President's Council. I met with parents on a monthly basis. We were about letting the parents back into the schools. And people know that the changes I made were predominantly at the principal level because I didn't feel like they were welcoming to our families. And that had to change, right? It's not what I wanted as a parent of teaching kids in BPS, and it's not what the parents in Lawrence wanted. They wanted to be involved in their educations. Regardless, some of my parents worked 2 and 3 jobs, right? But they wanted to be involved in any way they could. And so I am happy to come back and meet with any parents when they need to. So I'm not sure who's going to do that.
Is anybody taking notes of this?
Yes, I'm a man of my word.
You promise that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you my phone number after. You can text me, okay?
Hello everyone, my name is Rosalie Tinsley Williams. This is my 4th year on the school committee. My children started out at Sullivan School and they graduated from Dean Technical High School. They are 48 years old and 50 years old now. When I came to Holyoke, they were 5 and 7. I may be able to answer some of the questions that the young lady just asked back there. Last year, in my ward, I gave out over 600 notices, flyers. One parent came, and this LaFay is here, she can attest. One parent came, and she wasn't even from this ward. One parent, I gave out over 600 flyers. This past Tuesday, I gave out 49 flyers for this meeting, for my ward. Now, we need more people from the community to get involved. I worked 19 years and 3 months in Holyoke. I got laid off with 9 months left to retire. I'm here to represent all of the kids. My motto is this, I had these 2 buttons made up 2 years ago. If you mess with kids, you mess with me. And it doesn't matter which kids. And anybody who knows me know I love this Holyoke is my city, okay? We need more participation from the community. My motto is all lives matter. I'm here to represent all folks. And what we need to do is, I don't know what to do because I put out flyers, I talk up for Holyoke, I try to speak up for it. My kids are grown, but I love children, so I will do whatever I can do, Ward 2, to help kids. And to me, all of the schools belong to me, not just Ward 2. Morgan and Dean is my school. So I said all that to say this. I don't know how we're going to get the parents to get involved. We love these kids. We love this city. And we want to do everything we can to help you. And I do care. My kids are grown. They don't even live here. But whatever we can do to help you, please try to help us to help you. Because I know there's a lot of problems. I understand that. I don't know how many black teachers you have because I know women are minorities. I know Orientals are minorities. Hispanics are minorities. How many black teachers do you have versus the black students in the schools? Like I say, I'm here for everybody, for all the races. If you need me, call me. I'm on channel 12. Just call me. I'll do whatever I can. I will go with you and represent you if you need representation, okay? So God bless you all and have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we just got 2 questions that also connect with this last one about parent engagement. I'm wondering, is there any specific plan from the state level to engage with local communities and organizations?
So part of my job is to go out to visit all the communities, and I think reconnect the state with the different towns, the schools, and the families. And I visited maybe 40 or 50 schools already in the first few months. Different school districts. I've been all over the state, and I'm going to keep doing that because I want to hear from everybody. We can't make a good plan going forward unless we actually hear from everybody, right? And that includes students, teachers, parents, everybody, all stakeholders who want to do well by kids. And so that continues. I'm driving all over the state if you need me. So you know that's my job is to try to reach out to everyone. We do have a parent advisory committee. Also meets with us at Malden, which has representatives from various places across the state. They're always somebody that will meet with me regularly as well. And I'm a parent too.
Excellent.
Hello. Good evening. I'm extremely nervous. I don't have a question, actually. I just need to tell my story. So, I'm not Latino, and I'm a parent. And I'm here. And I have twin boys. They're 7 and 2nd grade. They go to Lawrence. And then I have a daughter who's 6 months old. And we are currently living in Holyoke in a family shelter. So I'm homeless. I'm not working. I'm in college. And I make all the community meetings. I'm on the school council board. I'm on the parent advisory board. I do Stand for Children. I'm not telling you my story to get pity or sympathy, but I'm very involved in my kids' education because when I was growing up, I had disabilities, dyslexia, stayed back in 1st grade, and my mom did not push hard enough for me. So I make sure I push hard for my children. Everybody at the school has my personal cell phone, so if they're misbehaving or just not catching up, I'm there. Any kind of meeting, I'm there. And I have my own life and I have a lot going on and it's very stressful. Sometimes I don't even know how I'm gonna make it, but I need to for my kids and to show them that there's okay. My fiance, he thinks I'm crazy. He's like, why do you go to these meetings? They don't care, it's not important. But it's important to me because I need to be present for my kids and I need to show the teachers and superintendent and everybody that I'm involved. And when I go to these community meetings or to their school, I'm usually the only parent. And half the time, I'm not Latina, and I'm still there. And I support everybody because I want them to support me and my children. So it is hard with getting parents. Like, I'm on the school council, and we kind of made a calendar. I said, how about we make a calendar with all the events, even if it's afternoon, after school, community events. Put it on the calendar and send it home. It might not touch a lot of people, but it may touch some. And I was so proud to see the very next day after that meeting, my son came home with a calendar that I suggested. So they're making little strides, but it's going to take a while. But I just wanted to share my story to let everybody know that it's very important for the parents to be involved. And like I said, I'm not Latina, my children are not, but I'm here, and this is important to me. And I just wish, I don't know if there's any other parents in the room, but it's hard when I'm the only parent. And I try to get support from, I don't have many friends because I'm new to the area, but I try to get like, hey, come out, do this. And, they're not interested in it, and it's really sad. But I want my kids to know, we're down and out right now, but this is not going to last forever. And education is really important. And I'm 28 years old, I'll be 29 in 2 weeks, and I'm in college. I go to Bard, and I'm doing what I got to do. I get my kids ready, then I go. So them seeing me go to school, it motivates them. So I'm really trying, and I hope that more parents will get involved. And if you know me, you see me at all the meetings and community stuff. So I just want to share my story. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Ray Figueroa. We actually support each other, you know that. So we got each other. I'm also a parent volunteer. Went to the Holy Public Schools since I was in kindergarten, graduating from DTAC. Now I have 2 godchildren that I support and I'm always there for. One is 17, he's in Chicopee High and Chicopee Comp, and the other one's in Veritas Prep. Talk about Surrey and say a little bit about mine. I had a great experience in the Holy Public Schools. I could not say anything bad about them. I didn't have the support as I wanted as a child and growing up, but I did have friends. I had teachers that support me all the way. I felt like I was like a teacher's pet. I was always sitting next to the teacher, always getting support. And I did have a lot of friends that did the same thing. So over the years and just growing up, my high school, I was like, you know what, am I staying here or am I going back to Florida? Because I was back in Florida, back and forth, and I was like, stressing me out. I was 17. And I decided to stay out here and continue my education, and I did. So I graduated for BTech, and I'm glad I did stay. I was doing full-time work, and I was doing full-time school. But I had a lot of stress going on back and forth, and then started volunteering in my godsons. Once he was like already 4 and a half, went to preschool. Started with his preschool there, seeing him once in a while, seeing what activities he did and stuff like that. So I started supporting him, and I was like, I don't have kids on my own, but I always cared for this little one. And I was like, why am I doing this? I would always question myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? And so I didn't have my father in my life to make sure he died when I was 1. My stepfather was there, but he wasn't at the same time, so I only had my mother. My mother had 11 children, so it was kind of hard for her, and she worked full-time as well. So it was like I had to babysit, and she had to go to work. So I've done this, and I grew up in Holyoke, and this all happened in Holyoke, honestly. It's just back from Florida, but all happened mostly in Holyoke. So I kept on saying to myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I looked at the little one, and I kept on saying to myself, I think I'm doing it because of him, I had no support, but the support that I needed, I'm gonna give it to somebody else. And I kept on saying that to myself, saying that until, ups and downs. I came and left, but then I stood there. And to this day, I'm a parent volunteer as well. I've been to the Holyoke Public Schools. I've been studying at the school. I've gone through a couple of roles already. I'm a kindergarten parent, professional now at Lawrence. Thanks to Jamaris, the family tornado, that I went to this step. And I just want to say that I'm thankful, and that if we, should come together as, parents, students, help our students, our kids, our children, all the HPS, we just have to become tighter, have more of as a family, you know, to understand each other and to support teachers because it's a struggle to, you know, to be teaching anything from high school to like kindergarten. So I think we should definitely do more support group for the teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take the mic because, so all we're talking about right now is exceptionalism. This isn't about people's individual stories. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But right now we're dividing black and brown. We're also dividing like parents who come or don't come. I had a damn good education at Holyoke High. I also, my senior year, as a Puerto Rican woman, was told to go work because I wasn't college material. So let's keep that real. Because what we're saying is that for decades, 50% of the students who dropped out of school, Holyoke Public Schools, had some pathological reason for them leaving school. Sorry, I can't accept that. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I think I want to become a drug dealer. I think I'm going to become a teenage mom. Nobody says that. That's a pathological framework that we're all buying into here right now. The reality is, what I learned at Holyoke High was that I was a Puerto Rican and that I wasn't supposed to make it anywhere. I am the program coordinator for Hampshire College's Community Partnerships for Social Change and Community Engagement. And I grew up in this neighborhood. But it wasn't the school system that taught me. It was the village that taught me. It was the Betty Medina Lichtensteins. It was the Carlos Vegas. It was the Sylvia. It was those people in my community that made me realize it's the Jackies that has been fighting for 20 years that made me realize that there's a break in the system, right? Dr. Shrike, with all due respect, when you presented about homegrown in your presentation, I've been saying that since we became a receivership. I said to Dr. Shrike, look at parents who are leaders, look at community members who are leaders, and grow them. Make them part of your system. Because bringing a Puerto Rican from Chicago is not the same as bringing a Puerto Rican from Holyoke. It takes a village to raise a child. Okay? Not everybody from Puerto Rican communities understand the depth of racism that exists. All these people who made it is because they denied who they were and bought into whiteness. Because why is it that even today, kids on Northampton Street can learn Spanish as a dual language, and yet kids at Holyoke High get reprimanded every single day for speaking Spanish? So let's not talk about exceptionalism. Just because you're the 2% that, quote unquote, lift yourself up from the bootstraps does not mean that the system isn't broken. The system is broken. And as Jackie said, we need more parents here. And part of the problem is that the parents that should be in here have been traumatized by the very school system that now they're sending their kids here. I love your story and I accept it, but you're a newcomer. There's history. There's history, and if anybody knows, I'm the historian, right? So if we look at Proposition 2.5, which is the one that screwed our school system in 1991, in Holyoke, there's a great video on PBS where they interview people to say, why didn't you pass Proposition 2.5? It passed for the fire department, for the police department, for DPW, but it didn't pass for the school system. And when they interviewed people, they said things like, those kids don't even know English. Those kids are pregnant. So people have to understand the depth of racism that has happened in this city. And that these parents, so everybody who made it here and is my color skin, you can't tell me that there wasn't a day that somebody called you, in fact, a spick. In fact, when I was in school, there was a group of young white men who then became city councilors and in different prominent positions that were part of the spick hunters. The part of the problem is that our kids don't know that history. They don't understand the long legacy in this city that Puerto Ricans have had as activists, as advocates, right? Because we don't teach that. We're not teaching. What are the two programs that are transformative right now in our school system? Palante, restorative justice. If you don't know about it, you should. And ethnic studies. And they're the two systems, the two programs that are constantly being threatened to be taken away from the very school system. Why? Because they empower Puerto Rican students. Because for the first time in 50 years, our kids get to learn about their Puerto Rican history. And so God forbid, our students would be not only proud to say they're Puerto Rican in language and in food and in music, but that they would understand the colonial history that Puerto Ricans have in this country, and particularly in New York. So we should get a book when we bring parents together. Let's read a book about Puerto Rican history.
Thank you.
Hard to follow that up, really. Thank you. Follow that as it is. I guess I want to, I'm a parent here in Holyoke. My kids in the dual language program, so good, bad, or indifferent. I think it's a great program. I want to thank everybody who did show up tonight. And there's some students here from the high school. I think it's great. There's more parents in the room, I think, that we recognize sometimes. But my question is to maybe get in the weeds a little bit, and maybe just sort of throw it out there and sort of see where you're at. So as you know, I'm the state rep here. I took the lead on trying to get the foundation recommendations pushed through the House. Was not successful for a variety of reasons. We can talk about that another day. One of the big hang-ups in there is the fourth aspect of it, if you will, where we look at districts in poverty and how we would calculate that into the formula to cover the expenses that quote-unquote districts in poverty have. What I want to think about, I hope that you're thinking about, because basically the charge is beyond you in your department to say, what does that mean? And I hope that we're thinking about trauma-informed therapy and trauma-informed practice for teachers and continuing ed. So when they come to a community, if they're not from Hoyle, that they understand what's happening, because as we said earlier, the trauma that these kids have in this district is just overwhelming. Whether it's in foster care, homelessness, the situations in their community and in their neighborhoods. But also looking at making sure that food programs can be about that, right? And again, this is my big issue, it's food insecurity here. Breakfast after the bell, we have to hear. Not food shaming. I mean, we have people's kids for 8 to 10 hours a day, we should feed them. Right? So if that's what it takes, if that's what a district in poverty needs, I hope that we're able to look at that and formula. That we look at partnerships, which we have great partnerships in this community of nonprofits, but also for-profits, partnering, the community colleges, partnering with our students and with our teachers. So I really hope that when we get that passed, and we look at that, and you look at that line and saying, funding programs and initiatives that work in poverty districts, that we really think outside the box. That's not just academic. That's going to be supportive services and it's going to be enrichment services as well.
I appreciate that. And coming from Lawrence, when they changed how they calculated the poverty rate for students, and suddenly I had fewer poor kids, than I did the next day, it was shocking. And often that doesn't even take into account undocumented students. So we are going to be looking at that intensely, trying to have a better result, because districts have been underfunded in many ways, particularly the gateway districts. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have a couple more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much for being here. So you've heard a lot. You've heard a lot this evening. That's a lot to take in. And to not just summarize or underline what anyone has said, there's been a lot of disconnect, there's been a lot of distrust. It has not happened in 25 years, it's happened more like in 50 years plus. When especially Puerto Ricans started to arrive, but we can also go even further back there with the history that the Irish and the Polish and the French Canadians have had, right? We're always downing on each other. But the reality is that the school department, the teachers, the administration, also have some really heavy lifting to do with MCAS and other things that, especially this district, has been charged with in the turnaround plan. To be able to bring those two together is what my question is. How is it that we're able to get our students to rise to the top, to support our teachers, but also to build a community similar to what happened in Lawrence. I heard about what you did. It came down to Holyoke about what the superintendent, the receiver, which was a voluntary receivership, different from what happened here in Holyoke. And I was in favor of this receivership and continue to be. I was on the school committee in the 80s. It didn't work then, and it sure as heck wasn't working in the early 2000s. So I support that. And I see the change. The change comes slow because it took so many years to get to where we're at. So I guess what I would like to hear from you is, if you were to have a magic wand, all right, and forget about the funding, how is it that you would bring all of that together to make this community as vibrant as the one that you left in Lawrence, or should I say that you return to frequently? Thank you.
So what I would say is, first and foremost, Lawrence has made some great gains, but there's a long way to go. Right? Education requires constant gardening. It's not something that you just fix. You have to keep working at it all the time. And I appreciate your sentiment, but it had almost nothing to do with me. I was a facilitator, if anything. The people in Lawrence were being talked about in a way that was incredibly disrespectful. They were saying that parents didn't care about their kids. Nothing could have been true from that. It was such a lie, right? It's just we as a district weren't letting our families in to be part of the process. And I think the gains that have been made in Lawrence have been made because people from the community came together and said, we're going to do this, right? We did it ourselves. And that does not, cancel our responsibility to support. But what I'm hearing is a lot of frustration, I get that. But I also think it's an opportunity for people to jump in, even more than you have, and try to get more people to jump in. Because the only time the change really happens is when a small group of people come together and start adding to the group and really start working on making change. Because let me assure you of this, there's nothing wrong with the children. The adults have to get organized. The adults have to get it together. Okay? And we have to reconcile our history, but we also have to move forward and figure out what we're going to do for these children. Because there's nothing wrong with the kids.
All right, so we will have one last question this evening.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here amongst so many great people, community leaders, teachers, and wonderful people, But I just want to talk about the foundational work. I was a parent when I came here from New York City in 1990, and most of my work has been around early childhood, community leadership, and really setting the foundation and really building relationships with parents and community leaders, and thriving around that and becoming passionate and excited about working with people. This is not a question, but I think that where we need to start is to make sure that we go back to basic needs and wellness in our communities, to really make improvements of our environments, of our schools, and really exciting children and families about them being able to gain access to education at all different levels. I know that if we all create a change around inclusive community work that leaves nobody out, so that means we want to be able to excite the parents, we want to be able to excite the children, and I know that this starts from home, that leads into the schools, that then leads into the community, and that leads into future success for everyone. And I know, it's harder to do it than to say it, but since I've been here in Holyoke, I know that I've been a part of many community meetings, many strategic planning meetings, and it all leads back to, there's a transient community, people leave, people come, and then it's left with a huge gap of where are we, where did we leave off, and where are we going? And I feel that we need to take action. And I remember being in many different groups and saying, as they're talking and planning, I am going to hit the ground running and build relationships and talk to parents and teach children. So the work that I do is developing programs that sets the foundation for learning from birth to 3rd grade. And you know, there's a lot of work around that, and it's, you know, we know that there's segregation, and we want to create a community that's inclusive, right? And so I think that that would be a good start in changing our plan in this community. When I was in college, I fought around, you know, the academic versus the basic needs, and everything was MCAS and evaluations around academic learning. And I was like, do you know if this child's parent is incarcerated? Do you know if this child ate last night? Do you know if this child has a place to place his head? So that's the importance of our community and being able to create a change, is to start there. That we need to give equal opportunity for children and families and develop a mentorship in our community so that children continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your questions. I think this evening we heard many, many amazing comments. We heard great questions from the audience, from people who submitted them. And we want to please thank Commissioner Riley for coming and for giving us the time.
Thank you for your contributions tonight, your passion and commitment to being here for kids and families and for the betterment of Holyoke. Again, thank you to all of you who were here. We thank all the staff members who helped put all of this together tonight. We thank the community members por tu voz, por tu pasión, y por todo lo que hacen para tus familias y para todos los niños aquí. So we're going to conclude tonight, but we know that the conversation isn't over. I've already spoken with Superintendent Wright, and thank you, Commissioner, for offering to come back. And we all are committed to coming back to Holyoke, because our job on the State Board of Education is representing all of the students and families in the state. And we are very committed to supporting all the work that is being done in Holyoke. Así que muchísimas gracias a todos y buenas noches.